As defined by the worshipful and ancient law of Gallifrey, a fixed point in time, also known as a temporal nexus, is a linchpin of the structure of ordered history. As the name implies, it cannot be altered by time travelers, and attempts to do so anyway would result in the unraveling of the web of linear time itself. Fixed points in the history of the third planet of the Solar System, located in Sector ZZ9 plural Z Alpha, designation Earth, include the death of Adelaide Brooke, the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, and the destruction of the city of Pompeii in the year 79 AD. Hello and welcome to the Literary Lair, and to our 11th anniversary! 11 years and I'm still doing these. Wow. Just wow. I've been doing some thinking, and 11 years is an achievement. I mean, we don't have as many episodes, obviously, but this show has been running longer than MASH at this point. But I think I'm going to take a little step back from all the pomp and circumstance for the anniversaries that aren't divisible by 5. If you're just joining us for the first time today, welcome! You picked a hell of a time to start, and you'll have a hard time catching up on all the lore. I'll make it simple. I've got an evil twin from a mirror universe, a mad scientist version of me is running around somewhere, and my future self shows up from time to time. Except for today. He's annoyed about some quite hideously embarrassing thing that I'm going to do next week and won't talk to me. But don't worry about the lore. It's only canon when it's relevant, which isn't very often. And I know my output isn't as good as it used to be, but I'm working on it. That being said, I did manage to squeeze out some time for our yearly anniversary video, and this year, to the delight of many I'm sure, it's finally time to talk about David Tennant's 10th Doctor. For many in the modern era, this is their Doctor. The definitive Doctor, on the same level as Tom Baker, the only Doctor that many fans knew. And there are a lot of fans who jumped ship when he left and have yet to return. And for all my ebbs and flows with the speed of these videos, I accidentally ended up making an excellent choice when I did the 3 Doctors back in 2015 and Scream of the Shalka 2 years ago, because 2023 is the year of Tennant. Yeah, the 14th Doctor is a return Tennant to the role, which, while I'm a little worried about that, given that it feels like sort of pandering, and plus it cheapens Tennant's original run, I think, but it's not like we haven't seen the Doctor repeat faces before or choose certain ones from his past, particularly faces he saw in this very novelization. So I'm willing to hear Russell the Davies out and see what he has planned. Besides, it's only for a few episodes before Ncuti Gatwa takes over the role, and I'm much more excited to see what Russell has planned for him. And this whole Tennant returning thing is exactly why I dressed up like the 10th Doctor for this review, as is my semi-annual tradition. Wait a minute. I know this outfit. What? What? Anyway, as always, I am honored that people are still watching my videos 11 years down the line. If you had told me 11 years ago, well, honestly, if you had told me anything that had happened in the past few years 11 years ago, I definitely wouldn't have believed you. But enough about me. You don't have time to sit here and listen to me burble about my years. Let's get into the book we're discussing today, which is The Fires of Pompeii, written by James Moran, also novelized by him, which is always good to see. This story is fascinating for a multitude of reasons. It's technically a multi-Doctor story, I'll explain later, a multi-redhead companion story, I'll explain later, and a multi-Scottish guest star story. I'll explain, you get it. So this one's got a lot going for it. And as for why I chose this one instead of the only other Tennant-era novelization that exists at this time, The Christmas Invasion, frankly, it's because I didn't feel like doing another regeneration story. I don't want more Rose, Jackie, and Mickey, because we already had them last year, and because this year is also a big one for the companion of this novelization, Donna Noble, seeing as how she's slated to return in the big Doctor Who 60th anniversary celebration, alongside David Tennant, the late great Bernard Cribbins, and, oddly enough, Beep the Meep. Which is cool and all, but I'm still holding out hope for Frobisher to make the jump to the main show at some point. Huh, neat. Anyway, I don't think there's much in the way of backstory to talk about, but I will say that I am psyched for the 60th anniversary, and I really enjoyed The Power of the Doctor, in case anyone was wondering. Let's get to the review. This is The Fires of Pompeii. The cover is interesting. It's our first novelization released during 13's era, where the BBC, for some reason, mandated that every piece of Doctor Who media utilize the current show's logo, which I disagree with. The best part about having a show with many logos is that you can separate distinct eras, or at least separate between the current and classic eras with simple shorthand. Also, it's used for the spin-offs, which I think is silly. I mean, look at this. They aren't even from the actual show. Anyway, I've softened on that choice now because the Diamond Anniversary logo is an actual classic logo, but I still think they should just use the logo of the era. Enough about that. The images are, again, actual photos that have filter effects on them to look hand-drawn, and we've got a pyrovile, a volcano, and Donna Noble in a little circle for some reason. I guess she's picking out her prize from the Wheel of Fortune showcase. And then, okay, I admit I haven't rewatched Tennant's era in a while, but that's clearly the Meta-Crisis Doctor, right? He's in a blue suit, but he's got a t-shirt on underneath, which the actual 10th Doctor never wore to my knowledge. I know he occasionally popped open the collar, but there's clearly not a collared shirt underneath there, right? It's also got the Target logo in the top right corner, and the title and author's name in the middle. Not a bad cover, nitpicking aside. Anyway, on to Recensionem. Oh, sorry, forgot, you don't speak Celtic. The novelization, unlike the episode, which began in media res with the Doctor and Donna arriving in Pompeii, instead begins with the Doctor and Donna in the TARDIS as the Doctor decides where to take Donna, since this will be her first true trip in the TARDIS, as her last two adventures with the Doctor were modern-day Earthbound adventures. The Doctor decides to ease her into the whole thing by starting with a jaunt into Earth's past, which is actually pretty typical for him, considering that the Doctor did that for Ian and Barbara, Vicky, Stephen, Ben and Polly, Sarah Jane, Ace, and Martha. And possibly others, those are just the ones off the top of my head. It also allows for James Moran to give some exposition to remind people of how Donna got involved with the Doctor in the first place, much like how the Daleks novelization wrote an entirely new intro in order to get out of having to explain the entirety of an unearthly child. In case you forgot, since it has been quite some time since they were on TV, Donna originally met the Doctor and the Runaway Bride. She left at the end of the episode, and then they found each other again while independently investigating the adipose in the excellent Partners in Crime, which I wish was also novelized because I really want to read that. They arrive in what they believe to be ancient Rome, and Donna immediately begins nitpicking. How can everyone understand her? What happens when she speaks actual Latin? Is she in Epcot? That one I can answer. Donna, Epcot was never this good. Also, I'm the one that's supposed to be nitpicking, not you. When an earthquake hits, they realize that a nearby hill of Rome is emitting smoke, and the Doctor realizes that he overshot again. They're in Pompeii on Volcano Day, or thereabouts. Not that the people of Pompeii know that, or know what a volcano is yet. They rush back to the TARDIS only to find it missing, having been sold by a shopkeeper to a local marble merchant, but they don't realize that they're also being watched by Myra the Soothsayer, played by Karen Gillan in the original episode, an actress now best known for playing Nebula in Guardians of the Galaxy and Ruby Roundhouse in Jumanji. Oh, and she also played Amy Pond, companion of the 11th Doctor later on Doctor Who, but that's by far her least important role of all time. She reports that two strangers who are not of Pompeii are wandering around, and their appearance matches an old and now superseded prophecy of the Sibylline Sisterhood, according to their High Priestess, who has been making her own prophecies and telling them to ignore their original prophecies. The TARDIS has been taken by Lobus Caecilius, who believes it to be a piece of modern art. I guess the TARDIS fits with his aesthetic, because the novelization takes time to tell us that his home looks like it was decorated by Liberace. Caecilius was played by Peter Capaldi, an actor known for playing Malcolm Tucker on The Thick of It, the Thinker in The Suicide Squad, and of course, the 12th Doctor. I do the same joke as I did for Karen Gillan, but Capaldi is my Doctor. Everyone else might see Tennant as their definitive Doctor of the modern era, but for me, it's Capaldi. Caecilius has a family, which includes his wife Metella, played by Tracy Childs, who is better known to Doctor Who fans as Dr. Elizabeth Klein at Big Finish, golden daughter Evelina, who has the gift of sight and is promised to the aforementioned sisterhood, for which she consumes the vapors of their hypocaust, and their son Quintus, who is a lazy layabout with no purpose because his parents pay more attention to his sister, who spends his nights worshipping at the altar of Bacchus, the god of keggers. They're expecting an important guest and need the house to be perfect, while Myra returns to her sisters to discuss the prophecy, but they find that it's only partially correct. The two visitors in the box are there, but they were said to show up at a time of storms, betrayal, and fire, which isn't happening. In fact, Pompeii is prospering outside of a few earthquakes here and there, like the one that hits Caecilius' home and causes all of his statues to topple over, including a bust he nearly misses, but is saved by the Doctor, who catches it right in the nick of time. After the Doctor and Donna introduce themselves,
I am Spartacus.
And so am I.
Caecilius tells the Doctor that business is closed, but he uses the psychic paper to claim to be a marble inspector, and intends to take the TARDIS, but Donna keeps trying to drop hints about how the family should leave town for a few days for no particular reason, for tax reasons. And the Doctor realizes what she's up to and explains that they can't interfere with a fixed point in time, despite Donna correctly pointing out that the Doctor interferes all the time, saying that interfering would be his middle name if he had one. Which he does, actually. It's Tittlepuss. Anyway, the Doctor tells Donna that stopping the volcano would unravel the delicate web of time, but that doesn't deter her at all.
TARDIS Time Lord, yeah.
Donna Human, no!
Listen, all I'm saying is that the Legends of Tomorrow killed a Japanese emperor like a decade too early, and nothing bad ever happened to their timeline. Mostly. Except for... Okay, I retract my objection. Unfortunately, that discussion is tabled when Lucius Dextrus shows up, the big important guest who's a big important blowhard, spouting random poetic gibberish in an attempt to sound smart. You'd have to be a complete loser to think that saying vaguely poetic stuff would make you sound smarter. Which actually reminds me of a proverb. It's a rare condition, this day and age, to read any good news on the newspaper page. Love and tradition of the grand design. Some people say it's even harder to find. That being said, he does appear to have legitimate psychic abilities, since he knows that the Doctor is from Gallifrey and Donna is from London, with no logical reason to know. Caecilius was commissioned to create a special marble item for Lucius, which turns out to be a giant marble circuit board, which both the Doctor and Donna know doesn't belong in 1st century Pompeii, nor could anyone there conceptualize such a device on accident. Lucius also gets into an argument, saying things about Donna's past, and then Evelina gets in on it, and mentions that the Doctor is a Time Lord. Evelina passes out from the stress, and while recovering, Metella asks Donna to check on a strange irritation of the skin that Evelina is suffering from. Her arm is turning to stone. Has she had any contact with Medusas lately? That's usually how one gets that. But I know a guy who can help with that.
Perhaps you'd like an analgesic cream?
While Donna does what she does best, dealing with the human element, the Doctor investigates the hypocaust and discovers that after an earthquake 17 years ago, they rebuilt the town's heating system to get heat directly from Vesuvius, and the soothsayers started being scarily accurate with their predictions, save for not having predicted a great cataclysm happening in about a day or so, which makes the Doctor a tad suspicious. The Doctor also figures out that the air in the hypocaust that the soothsayers and Lucius Dextrus were breathing in had bits of rock particles in it from the volcano. To his credit, Caecilius immediately decides that Evelina isn't going to be inhaling any vapors from now on. Unfortunately, before the Doctor can investigate further, a bird falls out of the sky. And then another one. And another one. They're all dead, which can only mean one thing. Praxeus! Quick, Doctor, get out of there! It's a really heavy-handed environmentalism allegory! Given that it seems that there's something strange afoot in Pompeii, the Doctor agrees to look into it, much to Donna's delight, and while Donna remains behind to watch over Evelina, the Doctor takes Quintus to Lucius Dextrus' home, and inside they find several identical marble circuits, but are quickly apprehended by Dextrus' guards. They're both about to be executed by Dextrus, while Donna discusses the volcano with Evelina and frames it as her own prophecy, which causes Evelina to open up a psychic link with the other soothsayers to let them know about it, which they take as a threat and intend to send something to kill Donna, lest she interferes with their scheme. The Doctor manages to escape by disarming Dextrus, literally, Wait, didn't I make that joke last year? When they return to Caecilius' home, they're attacked by a giant rock-based humanoid. Although the Doctor does initially mistake it for a Krog, it's not one, and it kills members of the household staff before he and Quintus manage to dispatch it with water, which cools it down and causes its exoskeleton to shatter. Unfortunately, in the chaos, everyone, including the Doctor, is too distracted to notice that the sibling sisters are snatching Donna, except for Evelina, who immediately confesses to the Doctor once he realizes Donna's missing. As the Doctor rushes to save her, Donna ruminates on how bad her past year has been. Some embarrassing incidents while she was trying to find the Doctor, a spectacularly bad haircut, a speed dating debacle, and her own personal noodle incident, Kebabgate. But as bad as all those were, they didn't end with her about to be sacrificed on an altar, so honestly maybe they weren't that bad. Donna's not the sit-and-wait quietly type of prisoner, so she snarks until the Doctor arrives to save the day, asking for an audience with their leader and telling them that the Sibyl would be horrified at what they'd been up to. The High Priestess turns out to have completed the transformation that both Evelina and Lucius Dexterus had been undergoing, having turned entirely to stone. And in fact, it turns out the entire sisterhood is in varying stages of stoniness as well. The priestess is overtaken by another voice, who the Doctor demands to know the identity of under order of the Shadow Proclamation, learning that he's facing the Pyroviles. The priestess intends to kill them, but the Doctor has an ace up his sleeve, a pistol. Well, in fairness, a water pistol, but don't worry, that's actually a really good thing, because rock is weak to water. Although, I do suppose a regular gun would work as well, because rock is also weak to steel, so he's got options for strategy. The priestess explains that they crash-landed centuries ago and were freed by that earthquake that happened almost 2 decades earlier, and immediately got to work utilizing the inbuilt ESP abilities of the humans to get them to do their bidding. As for what their ultimate plan is, the Doctor doesn't get to find out because they call his bluff and he and Donna escape into the Hypocaust and into the volcano, which Donna is naturally incredulous about. The priestess calls upon Lucius Dexterus and his men to set up the final phase of their plan within Mount Vesuvius, while Evelina tells Caecilius that something terrible is coming, and someone will have to make a terrible choice. Just touch these 2 strands together. Do I have the right? Oh, sorry, wrong Doctor Who episode. Donna makes another big swing to attempt to get the Doctor to save Pompeii, since if the Pyroviles were messing with stuff, it would mean that history was meant to be different, but he gives her his burden of a Time Lord speech, and realizing that it isn't flippant negligence, but a calculated choice for the greater good, Donna reminds the Doctor that he isn't alone anymore. It's not his burden, it's their burden, because that's what friends are for, sharing the load. They head in further and make it to a large cavern where a bunch of Pyroviles are walking around and prepping a large stone sphere, and the Doctor remarking that they're in the heart of the volcano, prompting Donna to make a very astute observation. Shouldn't it be really hot in there?
Why, yes, it should be! Hi there, and welcome back to How to Be a Mad Scientist with Professor Mike Sano. I, as always, am your host, Professor Mike Sano, and in today's episode, we're going to be discussing how to select your evil lair. And much like real estate, there are 3 things that you have to remember. Location, location, location. It's the most important part of your theming, after all. For example, if you're planning on flooding the Earth, you might choose to set up your lair on a mountaintop that would survive the flood, or perhaps a boat and or submarine. Conversely, if you're planning on evaporating all of the world's oceans, you might choose to set yourself up in one of the hottest places on Earth, inside of an active volcano. I can tell you, however, that is a terrible idea. Trust me, it sounds really cool, right? And yeah, you might be able to use steam power if you want to be an eco-friendly supervillain, although if you're going to destroy the environment anyway, I don't see the point. But it is a logistical nightmare. You know, it's not like a mountain that you can just hollow out with a drill. You have to pump out the lava, refit the lava tubes so that it's safe for humans to walk around, and also vent it into a geothermal generator. Not to mention the fact that your nemesis can just walk in and make the volcano erupt by dropping some sort of thermonuclear warhead right into that super cool lava pit that you just had to have to drop your henchman that failed you into. Trust me, a shark tank or a snake pit isn't nearly quite as cool, but at least it isn't effectively a self-destruct mechanism for your secret base. And you know, while I'm on the subject of self-destruct mechanisms, what's with all the big friendly buttons that blow up your whole base? Why would you even need that button? I'm sorry, I'm getting a little off topic. The point is, volcano lairs are out. Go with something a little more subdued, more sleek and modern. Go with something like a giant observatory, shaped like your head. Anyway, that's all the time we've got today, so come back next week as we discuss crafting the perfect origin story for you to tell your nemesis while he's strung up in one of those, weird bondage things that personally I don't really get. If anyone, understands that, please explain it, because it's very homoerotic, I don't get it. And, and who knows, if you tune in, you might just find out my origin story. Until next time.
But before they can investigate further, they're discovered by Lucius Dexterus, and the Doctor inquires about their plans, and Donna wonders why they don't just use their ship to go home. And Dexterus explains that their home planet, Pyrovilia, is gone. See, theorizing that one could time travel within its own lifetime, Pyrovilia stepped into the Quantum Leap Accelerator and vanished. Or, it got stolen as part of some evil plan by Davros. Either option is likely. Anyway, the Pyroviles intend to use the power of Vesuvius and their converter to boil the oceans and alter the Earth's climate to be habitable for the Pyroviles, which, unfortunately, will make it uninhabitable for humans. The Doctor and Donna flee into the sphere, and the Doctor begins to work his magic. But he realizes a terrible truth. The reason the soothsayers can't see the eruption is because if the Pyroviles' plans work, there won't be one. The Doctor can reverse the polarity and save the planet, but if he sends all of that energy back into the volcano, it'll erupt, causing the eruption of Mount Vesuvius and killing thousands. And this, right here, is the burden of a Time Lord. He has to make the most terrible choice. Save the planet or save Pompeii. But whatever happens, it'll be on his conscience. And the Doctor has already made a choice like this and condemned millions to burn, and he doesn't fancy doing it again. It also means potentially sacrificing their own lives, but Donna very quietly says, "Never mind us." And so together, the Doctor and Donna, the Doctor-Donna, push the lever together. Vesuvius begins to erupt, killing the Pyroviles and their soldiers, and the soothsayers, including Evelina, see an altered future that contains only death. The people try to escape, but it's futile, and Caecilius and his family wait for the inevitable inside their villa. The Doctor and Donna survive. The sphere turned out to be an escape pod that crashes back down to Earth safely, and they run back to Pompeii, to Caecilius' villa, to escape in the TARDIS. Donna tries to save people, but they're panicked and won't listen. They get back, and the Doctor runs into the TARDIS as Donna begs and pleads to just save someone, save a single family. As the end comes, Caecilius sees a bright light, and the Doctor holds out his hand, pulling him into the blue cabinet. Unfortunately, this shorts out the time differential and resets the universe. And as quickly as they appeared, Caecilius and his family are deposited away from Pompeii, given a chance at a new life. Donna thanks the Doctor for saving the family, and the Doctor remarks that he'll check in on them from time to time, and that he'll definitely remember Caecilius' face. It's a good, strong face.
Very intense.
And with that behind them, the Doctor and Donna zip off in the TARDIS for their next adventure. But that's not the end of the story, because we have to check in on what Caecilius and his family are doing in a few months down the line, where everyone is doing much better. Their arrival in Rome was fortuitous, and they somehow remembered a bag of valuables from their villa that no one remembers grabbing. That helped them get a new start. Evelina is a typical Roman teenager, no longer seeing the future, going out in a too-short toga, soon to become a playwright. Quintus is studying to be a physician, inspired by the Doctor, and they thank their new household gods for this fortune, the Doctor and Donna, an image of which Caecilius sculpted onto marble. We also learn in this epilogue that Caecilius' fortune continued for centuries, and their descendants would continue to go into the arts and sciences, always saying that they had a guardian angel looking out for them. Or Guardian Time Lord, as the case may be. This novelization is fantastic, and it does what any good novelization does. It adds on to what we saw in the episode and expands on it in a meaningful way. Last year's novelization, Rose, was good, don't get me wrong, but it felt like Russell T Davies was adding so much expansion that it was almost like a completely different episode, with backstories and context and entirely new characters and situations that never happened in the televised episodes. It felt very special edition-y, Greedo shooting first kind of stuff. This novelization is different. There aren't that many differences like in Rose. Moran is simply expanding on what we saw in the episode and throwing in a few new bits here and there, but they all feel mostly earned. The only real major change is one I actually support, because instead of trying to tie it into the greater Hooniverse as a whole, it actually eliminates arc words and makes it a better standalone story to be read in isolation, because it removes Lucius Dexter's mentions of "she is returning" and "there's something on your back," which tie into Turn Left and the Stolen Earth Journey's End, which are fine parts of an arc, but it replaces it instead with Lucius essentially ripping Donna apart and mentioning her lack of father figure since her father had just died, and how she's just a small, insignificant person seeking purpose, who would have been better off as Spider-Chow, which, while not tying into the series arc, is a stronger character beat for a novelization that one isn't reading as part of that arc. And it ties into Donna's overall character arc that she's an important person with a purpose. A purpose that is shot in the foot by the mind wipe thing, but I'm still holding out hope that this whole 14th Doctor played by Tennant nonsense is just a long-winded way to reverse that travesty of a plot point. A lot of scenes are fleshed out, particularly the Doctor and Donna scenes, which both adds a bit more banter to the episode, which helps to balance out the really heavy stuff at the end. Like, there's a bit near the end where after the Doctor and Donna go back into the TARDIS after dropping Caecilius and his family off on the hillside, and after the televised scene ends with the Doctor telling Donna that he needs someone and welcoming her aboard, they continue talking about it. When Donna asks about the laws of time, the Doctor jokes that he won't tell anyone that he broke them if she doesn't, to which she minds zipping her lips, to which the Doctor responds, "Blimey, if I'd have known it was that easy to get you to stop talking, I'd have done it ages ago." Which I think perfectly encapsulates their relationship. Although that's one of two jokes like that in the novelization, which might have been overkill. The other is back after Donna is kidnapped by the soothsayers. The Doctor remarks that Donna was being the quietest she'd ever been. I don't know why, but I didn't like that first one as much as the last one. Probably because Donna was there to defend herself in the last one, and it was clearly done in good fun. Meanwhile, the previous one felt a bit mean-spirited to me. But it also has a lot more to their heavy scenes, like the ones where the Doctor explains why he can't change history, and how stopping the pyrovials is a Sophie's Choice trolley problem. Someone will die, and he has to live with that. Forever. And Donna gets a lot of pathos too, particularly the child she attempts to save from the eruption, that the novelization states that she'll always see in her dreams after that. Presumably until the aforementioned mind wipe. Or maybe she still sees it and is just baffled and heartbroken because she's seeing some dying Roman child for no reason. Actually, that makes it worse, and now I'm sad. Jeez, Donna really went through the ringer, didn't she? I mean, she finds out her fiancé was going to feed her to a giant spider, her father died, actor existence failure, she has to watch thousands die that she can't save because it's predetermined, she lives an entire life in a computer simulation and has kids and loses them, then an alternate version of Donna lives through an entire bad timeline and sacrifices herself in order to save all of creation, and finally she ends up mind-wiped and losing all her character development for seemingly no good reason. God, even Miles O'Brien and Harry Kim weren't made to suffer this much. And the rest of the characters are great. They were great in the episode, mainly because most of them have fantastic actors, but they come off even stronger, with us getting even more into their heads, particularly Caecilius and Quintus. Heck, we even get some backstory and pathos for Myra the Soothsayer, but I imagine that has more to do with her being played by Karen Gillan, and giving her a bigger part because of her actress's future notability in the Hooniverse. It was easy to like Quintus in the episode because it was a fairly typical Golden Child situation where he was clearly the screw-up and his sister was the favorite kid, but we get a little more into his head, how he worries for his sister and how he didn't want to die having so much to live for, including asking a boy out. A boy that presumably died in the volcanic eruption, but let's not think about that. I'm sure there are tons of eligible bachelors in Rome. And Caecilius, while obviously I like him because he's Peter Capaldi, as one of my favorite actors, I also found his desire to be rich and famous throughout the land compelling because it had no bearing on his family. The moment he found out what was happening to Evelina, who Metella establishes doesn't really complain about her skin condition, he immediately decides that soothsayers or not, his daughter won't be put in danger any longer. Metella doesn't get much more in the novelization than the televised episode, but we do also get a little more into her head, so that's also nice. And the villains are really good. Lucius Dextrus comes across a lot better on the page than in the episode. Not that he wasn't a good villain in the episode, there's just something about how he's written about here that makes him seem a lot more imposing. Same for the Pyroviles. The descriptions were top-notch, and while I have a mind's-eye image in my head from the episode, I can also see the version that my brain constructs that supersedes what they were able to do with the effects budget. There's a reason I always prefer it when the original screenwriter writes the novelization, because anything they add is coming from the same mind that crafted the original story, so they know the characters and beats like the back of their hand. And that's how I feel here. Everything in the novelization feels organic. And honestly, thinking back, I have a hard time separating what happened in the novelization from what happened in the actual episode. I had to rewatch the episode 3 times in order to write the script, because I had to be sure that I was actually remembering changes and not just remembering something that happened. To me, that's the mark of expertly replicating the experience of watching it. You know, oddly enough, the only other time that's happened to me also included The Doctor and Donna Noble when Catherine Tate and David Tennant joined Big Finish. They released a scene on YouTube as a teaser for it, and I watched it, and then months later listened to it in the audio drama, but I was confused because I thought for sure that the scene had been from an actual episode of the series, and that's how I felt reading this, because once I finished it, the novelization scenes were indistinguishable from the original scenes in my memory. Also, something that's cute is that all the chapter titles are in Celtic. I mean Latin. And the pacing is really good. It's always moving and nothing stays put long enough to become boring. The action is always moving, and it's written in that tongue-in-cheek way that I enjoy for the most part. Like that joke about Caecilius' villa looking like Liberace's. And I would go into story problems, but for this story there really aren't any. The episode, as it was, had a really solid premise and was one of the best episodes of Tennant's run, and so does the novelization. Doctor Who can be hit or miss, and naturally adapting every episode into a novelization, at least I hope they will one day, means that there will inevitably be some clunkers, but not here. This episode is a veritable classic. And that was The Fires of Pompeii, a great episode that turned into an even better novelization that has me super pumped for the 60th anniversary this fall. And another one that technically has some bonus content as part of the Doctor Who lockdown stuff, included a mini-sode featuring Tracy Childs and Francesca Fowler, not reprising their roles, but instead playing 2 descendants of Caecilius, a mother and daughter naturally, spatial genetic multiplicity or something like that, discussing their family's penchant for following in the footsteps of their ancestors, becoming doctors and storytellers, and even occasionally police officers, and their guardian angel, which is really just more of the same that we got in the novelization's epilogue, but I felt I should mention it here anyway. Anyway, that's another anniversary episode in the books. Did you see what I did there? Here's to another 11 years, although with the schedule slippage being the way that it is, it seems increasingly less likely by the day, but we'll see. Anyway, see you next time.
I can't see anything out of these goggles. Maybe they're dirty. That's definitely the problem, and not the fact that the fucking spirals make it impossible to see out. I don't know how I walked around Comic-Con wearing these 12 years ago. It's been that long. No, 11 years ago. Because I think it was the year I did the show. It was the year I started. I justified getting the costume by creating Mike Sato in the first place. So it's kind of come a full circle. Maybe if I bring this scope. Oh no, yeah, you stay where you are. We'll bring this if I put this over to the side, bring this a scope closer. Maybe it'll be easier to see if it's closer. Okay. With science, of course.
Very intense.
Jesus fucking Christ, that was the worst experience of my entire life. I can't see anything out of these fucking... Look at this. You can't see fucking anything out of these guys. I really should have memorized the script, and I did not. And I guess that was on me. Anyway.